People are taught that the two goats in Leviticus 16 are about forgiveness, and that's not what the text is doing. Two goats are not about emotion, they're about governance. On the Day of Atonement, two goats are chosen. Same species, same value, same standing. Nothing distinguishes them except the legal outcome assigned to each one. One goat is killed. Its blood is taken into the Holy of Holies, and that blood cleanses the sanctuary. It addresses contamination inside the covenant zone, because blood restores sacred space. It does not remove the offender. It repairs the system. The second goat isn't killed. It's sent outside the camp into the wilderness. It's not redeemed, not sacrificed, removed. And that distinction matters more than people realize, because Scripture is showing you that sin is handled in two different ways depending on jurisdiction. Some contamination is cleansed through blood within the system, and other contamination is removed from the system entirely. This tells you something crucial. Death is not the default penalty in Scripture. Removal is. And before covenant law is fully established, sin is handled by exile. Cain isn't killed. He is marked and then sent away. And later under Torah, lepers are expelled, not executed. The unclean are sent outside the camp. The scapegoat is exiled and not slaughtered. Only after covenant law is fully in place, and only after instruction, only after warning, and only after persistent rebellion within covenant space does death become a judicial outcome. And that pattern never breaks. Now, watch what happens with Yahusha. He is executed like the first goat, but he's executed outside the city like the second goat. So Hebrews tells you this directly. He suffered outside the camp, and that's not accidental. Yahusha is not just paying a penalty, he is exhausting the entire covenant enforcement system. He fulfills the blood that cleanses the internal contamination and the exile logic that removes sin from jurisdiction, because sin is not just forgiven, it's displaced. And that's why the resurrection matters. If he stayed dead, the system would end in execution. Resurrection proves the system was always aimed at restoration. And this is why the wilderness exists. The wilderness is not always punishment. Sometimes it's training. Sometimes it's consequence, and sometimes it's both. Exile isn't annihilation, it's containment with a potential return pattern. And that's why Israel goes into the wilderness before inheritance. That's why Yahusha goes into the wilderness before ministry. Restoration always follows removal. And judgment in Scripture isn't rage, it's regulation. If Scripture were about destruction, both goats would die. If Scripture were about tolerance, neither would. Instead, one cleanses the system and one removes corruption from the system. That's covenant governance. And once you see it, you realize the Bible never teaches chaos, it teaches arbitrary wrath. And it never teaches grace without accountability. It teaches order, jurisdiction, and restoration. And that's the story of the two goats.